Hello there. Let's look at an example of a SAT reading comprehension question. So here we're looking at inferential questions. Let's take a look at the passage here. Mrs. Manstey, in the long hours which she spent at her window, was not idle. She read a little and knitted numberless stockings, but the view surrounded and shaped her life as the sea does a lonely island. When her rare callers came in, it was difficult for her to detach herself from the contemplation of the opposite window washing or the scrutiny of certain green points in the neighborhood flower bed, which might or might not turn into hyacinths, while she feigned an interest in her visitors' anecdotes about some unknown grandchild. Mrs. Manstey's real friends were the denizens of the yards, the hyacinths, the magnolia, the green parrot, the maid who fed the cats, the doctor who studied late behind the mustard-colored curtains, and the confidant of her tender musings was the church spire floating in the sunset. So we have this whole paragraph talking about Mrs. Manstey, what she does generally. Let's look at what the paragraph is moving on to now. One fine April day, as she was sat in her unusual place while knitting cast aside and eyes fixed on the blue sky mottled with round clouds, a knock at her door announced the entrance of her landlady. Mrs. Manstey did not care for her landlady, but she submitted to her visits with ladylike resignation. Today, however, it seemed harder than usual to turn from the blue sky and the blossoming magnolia to Mrs. Sampson's unsuggestive face, and Mrs. Manstey was conscious of a distant effort as she did so. So here it's clearly talking about one fine day what's happening in her life. Right? Now we have the question here. At line 15, the focus of the passage shifts from. So we know that the whole paragraph, this is line 15, we know that this paragraph talks about a general information, and we know that it's moving to a specific incident in her life. So by the process of elimination, you can clearly choose an answer option that talks about moving from something general to moving from something specific. Let's look at the options. Option A, a portrayal of the main character's daily routine to an explanation of why that routine is important to her. A general description of the main character, so here we get it. 2, a sustained narration of an episode in her life. So it's clearly moving on to something general, from something general to something specific. We can keep this on hold. An overview of the dilemma faced by the main character to a portrayal of her reaction to that dilemma. So we don't have any dilemma faced by her and what reaction she has here, right? A discussion of the main character's pastimes to a description of her attempts to develop a new one. Here we know we don't have Mrs. Manstey developing a new kind of a pastime. Clear? So by the process of elimination, B should be the answer because the passage shifts from something general to something specific. Thanks for watching.